Hello everybody, it's the FarmSim guy here. I hope you're all doing well. Now this video and this series is something that I've been desperate to do for a very long time. But it feels now the time is right to get stuck into this. FarmSim 22 is coming up to a year old in the next couple of months. And I get regular comments on my videos and my Discord from people who are just still discovering the game. People who don't have any farming background or any pre-existing knowledge of farming. Who are finding the game and falling in love with it, but really not knowing what to do or looking for help or how they can improve. So hopefully, this series is going to go some way to doing that. What we're going to do, we're going to go right back to basics. We're going to look at the game from the ground up as if you've just bought it and turned it on and you don't know where to start. And we'll work all the way through to installing third-party mods, playing on modded maps, even making some small adjustments and tweaks to mods to help them suit your gameplay and your style. And we'll look at different styles of play as well. And obviously, with the upcoming Pumps and Hoses and Platinum Edition, there's going to be even more content coming out. And especially with that focus on logging as well, we'll maybe even dive in and I'll brave the world of logging again. But for now, we are going to start at the very beginning. I'm maybe going to give you some tips, advice along the way, maybe some third-party resources as well that can help you and give you other advice, and we'll take things from there. So, I hope it's useful for you. I understand it's not for everybody, but I do know there's so many new players out. FarmSim 22 is the most popular version of the game in the franchise so far, so I think it's only right and proper that we don't forget about the new players and don't always concentrate on the latest, greatest mods and how to do advanced courseplay or auto drive techniques, and strip it right back and help as many people as we can. So, without further ado, let's jump into it. So, you've installed your game, you've sat and watched the loading video, and you arrive at this screen. Let's quickly run through what these different menu items do, and then we'll go into them in a little bit more detail. Career, we will come back to that in a little while, but basically that is where you start your first game save. When you click on it, it takes you to this screen, and you select one of the 20 slots, which is where you'll do your first game save. Multiplayer is obviously what it says on the tin there. It is multiplayer, so if you want to join a game, if you have friends that are already playing, you can load up different servers and play with them. The other option is to create your own game, and if you double click on that, it takes you to your game saves here as well. Now these are the same 20 slots that you have for your single player game as well. But you can select one of these to be a multiplayer game, and then you can play peer-to-peer with one of your friends and invite them directly rather than having to play on a rented server. And finally, the button here, Rent a Dedicated Server, will take you off to the Farming Simulator website where they have got their preferred partner suppliers for servers. So we will come back and we'll talk a little bit about multiplayer in a different episode. It's not for this one, but just to give you an idea of the menu setup here. Now, downloadable content is probably an area of this homepage that you will end up spending quite a lot of time in as you get a little bit more accustomed with the game. Because basically, Farming Simulator has a wonderful network of modders who develops new tractors, new gameplay items, new maps that you can add to the game at any point, and they come out on a daily basis. So there are thousands and thousands of mods out there already for Farming Simulator 22, which really enhance the game and continue to do it on a daily basis. Like I said, there's regular content coming out, regular new content. So we will dive into the world of mods again in a different episode because there's a lot to cover in that. Achievements, pretty basic one, this one. There are a raft of achievements, 45 in total, for Farming Simulator 22, and as you work your way through the game, you can unlock these. They're a little bit cryptic in here, but you can find out online what you need to do for all of these if you want to find out, or alternatively, you just work your way through the game and hopefully unlock them as you go along. That's pretty much what I've been doing, and I've started to achieve quite a few of them. We're up to 22 now out of 45. So again, a nice little touch there, a little bit of fun as well. Options here. Now, these are your global options for the game. So some of these, the majority of these, you cannot adjust once you're into a game, but some of them you can. So your sound is still available to you to adjust, but other things like controller settings and things like that, you have to do in this menu here. So let's quickly run through them. You've got your language options at the top here. You've got input help mode, and we'll talk about that when we jump into a game, but basically there's a help menu in the game, and you can tell it which input controls it displays to help you. So if you're on a keyboard, obviously it will show you keyboard commands. If you're on a controller or have a steering wheel and prefer to see those, you can use those instead. Input controls, you can have gamepads as steering wheels. It will obviously detect those if you've got this switched on and activate those. Head tracking as well, if you've got a Tobii eye tracker or something similar, it will find that and interact with that for you. Forced feedback as well, if you've got an appropriate wheel that gives you force feedback, you can set the level of that in here. I have mine set to 100. To be honest, it's lightweight, I would say, the force feedback in Farming Simulator. It's not really heavy duty like some of the racing games and things like that. And then obviously inverting the look. If you use your y-axis in a certain way, down is up and up is down, you can change that there. Then you've got all your sound controls across the board here. Music volume, there is music in the FarmSim menus. I turn it off because after a while, hearing the same track over and over is quite torturous. Again, the same with the GUI volume. There's little click sounds as you move up and down the menus. Every time you roll over one of these, it clicks. And again, that's something that I've turned off. But obviously, your preference is your preference. So however you want to play it. My volumes here are set slightly differently because when I'm streaming or when I'm recording videos, I want to make sure that they're not battling too much with my voice when I'm speaking into the mic. So they're set the way they are. Display settings, lots and lots of things in here that you can change, again depending on your setup on your PC, or if you're on console you can have a play around with these. Everything from your frame rate limit, whether you want to play windowed, full screen, resolution scaling, which can sharpen things up if your graphics card will allow it. The scale of your HUD, now you'll see my HUD is reduced to 75%. It's quite large, the heads-up display in the game. So I like to reduce mine down slightly. I've also turned off camera bobbing, so I get a smooth walk and a smooth view when I'm doing cinematic shots for my vids. But again, entirely personal preference, all of this. In addition, down here we have advanced graphic settings. Now, you can click onto those and then you will start to see the amount of different things that are available to you now. If you want to, you can play around with these. If you know a little bit about computers and how to optimize these, you can absolutely have a play around in these. There's lots of different options. Again, if you've got an NVIDIA card, you can load up the DLSS, or if you've got an AMD card, you can play with the Fidelity FX resolutions. You can play with the sharpness, the shadow quality, the distance, view distance. These are all set at their max for me because I've got a decent graphics card. In fact, I've reduced my mirrors slightly to save on a little bit of performance. Texture filtering, shadow map filtering, you name it, it's all in here, and you can have a play around with all of this to your heart's content. Again, this is all personal preference. A lot of this is personal preference. So you will know your computer, or you'll know your setup and be able to adjust it accordingly. So lots and lots of advanced graphic settings in there for you to have a play with as well. Now, the next menu item down here is your input controls, your keyboard and your gamepad controls. Now, this obviously controls pretty much everything in the game. By default, it works with keyboard and mouse if you're on PC, but you can obviously plug in something like a PlayStation or an Xbox controller and use that as well. So obviously, if you're on console, it will default to the gamepad controls. Now, to switch between the two, if you're on PC, you can jump from gamepad controls to keyboard controls like so at the top. I'll be honest, I run 99% of my keyboard controls as default. I don't change anything fundamentally. The only time I will find myself changing a keyboard control is if I get a clash with a certain mod, because there is only a certain amount of inputs that you have for FarmSim. So once you run out, you start having to get quite creative with them, especially with keyboard and mouse. But if you ever want to change these, you can keep the original if you want to. If there's no clash and you want to have a certain second button, you have the option to run a full second set of keyboard commands here. You've also got mouse controls as well, so using your mouse buttons or combinations of your mouse buttons, and also movement as well. So some of the combine headers and combines in game, you can adjust certain things by holding down one of your mouse buttons and moving the mouse to the left or right or up and down. In fact, front loaders and wheeled loaders and things like that all work by using mouse controls and certain buttons pressed down to raise and lower them. So if you are on keyboard and mouse, it's quite tricky to get used to. But after a while, it'll become second nature. Now, if you want to change or add a different key to any of these things, you just click on it, and then it asks you to press the key you want to use as walk backwards. I'm going to put it back to S, because that's what it was before, and I'm happy with that. But you basically press the button you want it to be on your keyboard, and it records it. Everything's sorted. Again, with your gamepad controllers, it has all of them built in by default when the game arrives, but again, you can customize these as you see fit. But you can see I've got controllers in there, both a wireless controller, and I use joysticks as well, so I've got some setups already in there as well. So basically, my advice to you at the start, if you're fresh into this, leave everything as it is and only change it if you find you're coming across an issue or something isn't working, and then you can check it in here. If you do change anything in here, though, of course, make sure you hit Save Controls before you go back to your main menu. And the fourth and final one in your options here is for your additional peripherals. So you can see here I am using a G920. With my PC, I have switched the dead zones down on this to 3%. The defaults are 14% across the board, and for me, a little bit too loose. It takes a little bit of time to get any input going, so I drop mine down to somewhere between 3 and 5%. You can see my accelerator is at 5%, and I actually use the clutch as my brake because the spring is a little bit lighter. The brake on the G920 wheel is quite heavy, so I prefer to use the clutch as my brake. But there you go, nice and simple to adjust those as you see fit. You can also switch devices down at the bottom here as well, so by clicking X or using the mouse here, I've switched there to my joystick. Again, I've switched there to a button box that I have installed, and my mouse, and back to the steering wheel there. So let's go back out of there, back to the main menu, because quite honestly, that is all you've got in your main menu. You've then got credits, which are exactly what they say there, and quit obviously takes you back to your desktop. So back to the top here, and really the first one we want to look at is career mode. We will press the button there. It takes us through to our 20 empty game saves here. And all you need to do here is hit the continue button. You can select whichever one you want. Obviously, we'll go with the first one here. We will hit continue. Then moves on to this, which is your career mode, and it gives you 3 options. You've got new farmer, which is probably the one I would recommend you start with, especially if you've got no prior experience of the FarmSim franchise or you don't know anything about farming. Because what it does, it gives you some equipment, gives you some money in the bank. It's very generous with you on the cost of your crops, on the sale of your crops and things like that. And everything's easy. So things like refueling and repairs on your tractors, everything's looked after for you. So it's a really good way of starting the game. The second one here is called Farm Manager. Now what happens in this that's different from new farmers, you don't get any equipment. But what you do get is a lump of cash to spend. So you can buy your own land with it. You can buy the relevant tractors, combine harvesters, whatever you need to get your farm started. Some of the elements are switched over, so you've got to do a little bit more manually than you would have to in new farmer mode, but still quite forgiving. And then finally, you've got start from scratch. As it says here, this is hard mode really, a real challenge. The economy is tough, the prices are low, and you've already taken out hefty credit with the bank, so you start with a loan. You do get some money, but not much. And all of the elements of the gameplay have been switched to their most realistic settings. So, like I said, for us today, starting a new game for the first time, let's go into New Farmer. And you've got the choice of the 3 base game maps. Now, we'll move over to Outtro, which is the French map. We'll hit continue. Now, you're presented here with a screen that you may not see. I have 3 of the DLC packs installed, so it's now asking me if I want to install these in the game. Because it's our first time, I'm going to turn these off as if they weren't there. And we'll hit the start. And we will load up our game. So once it gets to 100% over here, we just need to hit the start button. And it will bring up our character screen. Now you've got options along the bottom here to confirm your player if you're happy with the way they look. You can select different things. You can change your name as well, so you can give yourself your in-game character name if you want, or you can just call yourself whatever you want to call yourself. I'm not going to change that because I'm quite happy with that. You can then go in and adjust your character as you see fit. You can change their haircut, beard, moustache. You've got lots of clothing options. You've got outfits, full outfits here. You've got some nice branded gear as well here. Or you can go in and individually add elements like shirts, pullover jumpers, jackets, polo shirts, whatever you want is available to you there. Lots of different sets of trousers, jeans, pants, whatever you want to call them, wherever you come from. Same with shoes, hats galore. So you've got some nice flexibility in here. You've got some gloves in there as well, and then sunglasses to help you out as well. Once you're happy with your setup, you can hit the confirm button. This is what you're met with, and I would recommend, if you've never played the game before, this is a really good way of finding out the basics of the game. So what I would do is say yes to this. If you say no, you can always load it in at a later date if you want to. But I would recommend the first time you do it, you press the yes button. It gives you some of the important key commands and some of the standard key commands to get you started, and you can move on from there. I am not going to go through the guided tour here because you can do that yourself. We'll come back and maybe look at that at a later date. But in essence, what we'll do is OK this. It'll give you an idea of some of the screens we do. So for example, it gives you a green column here, so you can head over to your combine and you can follow the rules as it dictates them to you. Now, one thing I am going to recommend you do here for this tutorial though, and actually something you should probably do as a new player anyway, is go into your menus and turn off seasonal cycles. And the reason for that is farming obviously runs in seasons. You can plant at certain times of the year, you can harvest at certain times of the year. Now, it's a great addition to the game and something I play with all of the time, and I'm sure you will in time as well. But just when you're starting out, it can have a detrimental effect on the speed of gameplay. You find yourself skipping a lot of time just to get stuff done, especially if you're starting small. So what I would recommend you do is turn off seasonal cycles. Now, we are going to do another video when we go through all of the menus here and show you everything that is involved in the game menus, because there are a lot of them. But today, all you want to do is click on this little tractor here with the cog on it. And if you go down to here, you can ignore everything else for now. If you go down to here, seasonal growth, you want to switch that not to paused, but to no. And then you can click save game down here. And what will happen is that you'll be able to do anything at any time of the year. So you can plant your crops whenever you like, you can harvest them whenever you like, and it just helps you. It's one less thing to worry about. You can turn it on as well if you don't want to do that, obviously. You can turn it on and leave it on. But I find it just definitely helps when you're starting out with the game. So there we go, folks. I'm going to leave it there because I don't want these videos to be too long and too onerous. So what we've done is look there at the main menu and the initial starting menus of the game. We've got ourselves into a game, we've created our first game save, and we are working our way through the initial tutorial. Like I said, if you want to turn seasonal cycles off, you can do that, or you can leave it on. Other than that, work your way through that tutorial, and we will come back in the next episode and dive into a little bit more farming. Now, for your homework this week, I strongly advise you check out the Farmers Handbook. This is incredibly helpful because there's so much new stuff in Farming Simulator 22 that actually seasoned players find this a useful resource. With the introduction of productions in the game as well, this is a very helpful cheat sheet. Tells you all the information on what you need to know, but it also gives you, particularly for players who haven't got any farming background and are unsure of the stages that you need to go through to get your fields prepared, get your crops planted, look after your crops until they're ready to harvest, and then harvest them. It has all of that in detail in a very easy to follow format. So got to give a big shout out to Mitz, who has created the Farmers Handbook and put a power of work into that. I will put a link to that in the description below. As you can see on screen now, a really bright, colourful, interesting, easy to use resource, which you'll find yourself going back to all the time to check out. So, I hope this has been helpful. Obviously the first one's a little bit of a challenge, but I'm trying to bring this to people who've no experience of the game before. We will get into some more interesting, exciting elements of the game as we move through this series, but certainly I want people to feel comfortable with the game from the off, so covering off those initial menus and things like the settings and controls and the way that you approach the game when you turn it on, hopefully is helpful to you. But for now, from me, the FarmSim guy, welcome, new farmers. I hope you love the game as much as I do, and the community does. It's a wonderful, wonderful game, so I hope you enjoy your time in it. Good luck, happy farming, and we'll see you back for the next video. Take care, bye for now.